just get the forehead.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Dave Scher from Christian Public Leader course, and we are meeting here today with Dan Carlson, who is the chaplain in the Minneapolis Police Department. And I just want to really quick thank Josh Blair, who was a student who helped arrange this meeting. And I'm just excited that our students get to hear a little bit more. So, Mr. Dan, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are as a Christian Public Leader.
Well, I started off, I was a cop for 25 years when I graduated from Augsburg College. Throw a little pitch in there for that.
Nice.
I graduated after majoring in hocky. So I'm trying to figure out what I was going to do.
You don't have a mullet, though.
No, that was in the day. It might have been close. But I when I graduated there, I kind of had a choice. Was I going to go into teaching, like my degree? Was I going to go into being a pastor, which was something I really wanted to do, a family thing. I was thinking about that. Or did I want to go into public safety and law enforcement? And my call, I look back on it, I didn't call it a call then, but there was no choice. It was like, no, I'm going to go be a cop. And so I got hired as a cop for 25 years, retired in 2007, at which point I played with going to seminary at Luther here, taking some classes, just figuring out, discerning my whole call process. And it really stuck. So I retired early, right when I was actually 49. I did 25 years and then spent 3 years in the team program. I got ordained in 2010 and I got called to public safety ministries, doing police chaplaincy work full time. I do it with a variety of organizations. I spent a lot of time with Minneapolis Police, but I do it for the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association and half a dozen other agencies too.
Very cool. So can you talk a little bit about like when your job is just really sweet, you've hit that sweet spot and you're like, this is part of why I do what I do. Can you talk about maybe a moment where you've had something like that?
I'll tell you, I deal with a lot of trauma. I do two basic things. I'm a spiritual care provider. I do spiritual care with cops, firefighters, paramedics, mostly cops. So I provide the direct care where I sit one-on-one with people. The majority of my time is just having conversations like this with people over coffee, talking about their struggles and challenges. But I'm also, the demand for that work, as I've done it, is huge, and I can't keep up. Mm-hmm. And so the second half of my job is helping develop other people to do that kind of thing. That's why I'm over at Luther right today, is to try and find ways to get more pastors to provide that care and support. And so I do system care. And the beautiful part, best part of it for me is when I'm providing care and all of a sudden I got to tap out and it's too much. I'm overextended. Then someone will sneak out from out of the blue and carry my load for me. And it's like, so that we find these other people so that we actually have a system of care. Yeah. Because there's an unbelievable amount of care happening to people in the law enforcement professions and the fire professions and emergency medical profession. Unbelievable amount of care. But there is too often, it's in spite of the systems that employ these people. And it's definitely not because of the systems, because they want to provide the care, but they don't know how. Everybody's afraid of this church-state relationship thing. I won't even use the term. I'll use it once whenever I speak. Separation of church and state. It's not about how we're separate. It's how we're together. There are definitely boundaries. There's the church house, there's the state house, and they're two different houses, and you got to respect whose house you're in. But it's a real challenge when people can't navigate that. But what's beautiful to me is God's working in all of us. And I'm doing my job. I was a police chief. I deal with the higher ups. That's kind of my dynamic. But then some cop will come to me and they'll be struggling and I'll be struggling because I really don't know how to deal with them because I can't relate. Chief comes to me and says, hey, I'm struggling. I got it. I've been there, done that. But cop comes to me, so we'll talk, and then all of a sudden somebody will slip in and say, hey, how you doing? This and that. I say, hey, can you go talk to Joe or Sam or Sue, Mary, whatever? And they're like, all of a sudden, God just works. I mean, he brings people together because we're happening, but we got to connect and have that same mission. We just got to all be working for the positive.
I heard a little bit about your struggle in there, but is there anything else you want to say about just when you're having a tough day, like, what does a tough day look like for a police chaplain?
Well, so you take anybody, any human being, you get dark stuff happening, bad stuff. People die, you lose jobs, your kids are struggling, your parents are struggling. I lost my job, I don't have enough money. Pressures of the world has taken me over. All that dark stuff comes together. That's one thing about the law enforcement profession. When I was a cop, I never dealt with anybody on their good days. I dealt with them on their bad days.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned that is the light and the dark, the good and the bad, holy and the evil, whichever one it is you're dealing with, it's infectious and it's toxic. And if you deal with bad stuff all the time, you absorb it. And so the cops are dealing with it. Now in a leadership role as a Christian, as clearly a pastor, I go looking for it, just like the cops go looking for it. So I'm dealing with cops who have just been saturated with negative. And they purge, and you can't help but getting some on you. And then I feel dark, and then so it's like, where do I go? I mean, it's great going to God. Yeah. I can pray, I can feel. But if I don't have somebody sitting next to me putting their hand on me and saying, I'll take some of that off of you. Yeah. And so that's where I got to go, because it is constant.
Chaplains need chaplains.
Chaplains need chaplains, and then the chaplains for the chaplains need chaplains. So pastors, but more often than not, we just need a friend to help us carry the load. And if it's a person of faith, sometimes I got people that help me that they're not people of faith, but they're good, kind people, and they want to help their brother. And so
I think that brings up one of my other questions, which is, you have a really wonderful way of nuancing this. You're engaged in a world which is very pluralistic. You have people of all faiths that you work with. You have spoken to me about your deep commitment to Jesus Christ, and so as our students are out there, they're going to be navigating the world. You're navigating more and more and more. So how do you do that in a way that has integrity for you, but that doesn't get you in trouble with your job? And how do you do all that?
Well, I use this, and I do a lot of teaching for chaplains too, and I always talk about, one of the foundations of the church-state relationship is whose house are you in? You got to be true to who you are. I am a Lutheran, ELCA Lutheran pastor. I'm a Christian. Great-grandpa was a Lutheran pastor, grew up in a Lutheran household. I'm a Lutheran, and I do not agree with every piece of Lutheranism, but the philosophy and the Jesus part of it. And people always ask me, what about all these commandments? I said, well, I think there's 10, but I go by the 2 that Jesus told me to pay attention to. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. So it's actually 3 in there, I call it. But loving God, love your neighbor yourself. And that's where I go for the help on that. I don't think I got your question there. What was your last question? It was
I think that's a good guideline.
That's where I go, and that's I go back to that, is navigating the church-state stuff. And I always pay attention to whose house I'm in. And no one can tell me not to be a Christian. That's beautiful about this country. Our faith is a freedom, and we can do it. Yeah. But they can tell me not to impose my Christianity on someone else. And when I'm in the cop world, my motto and principles, and I do try and teach this too, is that you got to live your faith as a faith person, however you're brought up with that, and share your faith through your actions. But you can't impose your faith. You can't impose it on people. And what I've learned, and I teach people that, and it's like, well, when can I share it without imposing it? And I always tell people, I said, the easiest, safest way is when someone asks. If you're loving God, and if you're loving them and caring for them in challenging times, they're going to say, what's up with that? Yeah. And then it opens the door, and then you let God guide you and your experiences and guide you. And I have been doing this for 10 years full time, and I am affiliated with dozens of agencies in a lot of ways, and half a dozen agencies intimately, as being on their staff. And they accept it. And there's a line you can't cross, but I learned if you just loving people, caring for them. And we often want to care for people in the Christian world, not care for you. And it's like I tell people, let's start with just caring about them. So often I want to care for you, take care of you. How about just caring about them? And the best way to care about them is to understand them, get to know them. Yeah. And then if we understand them, not that different. I know it's this, these little rhetoric, the little cliches. We're more different than we are, or more similar or different. But it's true. We're all in the same place. We're all struggling, and we're all looking for our own path. But if you just love people and care for them, there's a motto amongst chaplains, and I was in a meeting this morning, and they said it. It's like here's my motto. Show up and shut up. Yeah, exactly. And I added mine, because mine's a little softer on that, because I really do like talking, so I don't like saying that, shut up. But it's like, show up and stay out of the way. Yeah. And it's like, but that's why I wear the collar. Talk about a Christian leader. I wore this collar, and I started wearing it 10 years ago, and I wasn't sure with it. If I was a cop, I always wore a uniform, because then I wore my uniform in, even when I was a chief. And it's like, then you know who you're getting, you know. And so here it is, engage it, disengage it, whatever you want. But when I show up, my little collar on, God's in the house.
Yeah.
And people want God in the house.
Yeah.
They don't want him getting in the way.
Right.
And believe it or not, they when the dust is settled on whatever you're showing up for, they're talking to you. And they don't want to talk about the Twins or the Vikings or the Wild. I mean, they will. They might start there, but then they want to talk about, so where's God in this? That's, I'm paraphrasing there, but that's, they really want to know why.
So, last question here. This is my toughest one, so be ready. We are in a very charged political environment right now. Police in the community are not besties right now, as the kids say. And so faith leaders, Christian public leaders, are now, we're graduating from seminary. We're trying to figure out, how do we become an asset? How do we support people and bridge the gap? And so what would you tell a person who's about to graduate from seminary? How can they be helpful to this conversation?
I think the key is focusing on solutions rather than blaming on where the problems come from. We have got to pay attention to history. We have got to look back and see why things are what they are. But we've got to look at that from a more objective, non-emotional standpoint of saying, and everybody's got to admit and confess that there's bad stuff that's happened for a long time, and everybody has a role in that in different degrees and shapes and form. But regardless whose fault it is, I don't know. But everybody was responsible for what happened in their own little world, in the negative stuff. What we have to look for is going forward. We're all responsible for the positive stuff. So let's build on, okay, here's mistakes. Let's not make them again. What can we do to change that? And it's, I'm telling you, people want to say, oh, we got to come together. We're one person. We're one body. No, we are people that are in different communities. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, that's where we spend our lives, is in our communities, as whatever they look like. And we've got find a way to stand in support of our communities without standing in opposition to our neighbors. Mm-hmm. And the only real way to do that is to understand who your neighbors are and get to know them a little bit. And so that's that. We have got to bridge gap, but we're not going to pasteurize or homogenize everybody and have so that we're all the same, so we think the same, act the same, do the same. No, we got to come together with our good stuff. And we got to be accountable to the bad stuff. And the question is, why is there bad stuff? Now you're going to get theological. And
that's a Terry Fretheim class.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. And we've got to learn that stuff, because that is a big factor in how we care for people and understand them. But there is bad stuff in this world. Why? We can go into that, but the fact of the matter is. But there's more good stuff. And the good will outweigh the bad. And that's my light-dark metaphor that I use all the time. The light will prevail.
Yes.
And I heard this, it was a phrase written in a paper once, but I grabbed it. But we spend our lives working in those dark edges of a complex world. Mm-hmm. There is, and we got to bring light there. And we got to carry that light. And if it's dark, and it's up to how many times do you forgive people? How many times? 7 times 70? Isn't that biblical?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that. Yeah. But it's like, no, it's our job as Christians to take that step and do the extra thing to try and bring positive reconciliation and peace. But we got to be strong in who we are as Christians, because it's a tough world and we can get beat up out there. So we got to be strong to hold our ground with that care and compassion that we got to bring.
That's a good word right there. We'll leave it at there. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan.
A pleasure.
Good luck, CPLers. We love you. Peace.